Hi everyone, my name is Matt and welcome to my channel. Today let's paint up some ranged troopers for Star Wars Legion, which were generously sent to me by Atomic Mass Games. In this video we'll use some simple techniques to paint warm and cool white tones, and then add a few glazes and highlights to take the models to the next level. So let's grab our brushes and get started. After assembling the models, I undercoated them with a bright white primer and then mounted them to corks for easier handling. If you'd like to see more about how I prime my models, check out this video here. Let's shade the armor with a cool bluish tone. Space Wolf's Gray is about the right color I'm looking for, but it's too strong right out of the pot, so I diluted it with an equal amount of contrast medium. I like to work on one section at a time and use plenty of paint so it flows into all the recesses. Then I'll use the brush to soak up any excess. I like to use the brush to wipe more paint away from the large, smooth, or top-facing areas, especially the top of the helmet. This is a great way to get easy highlights on the models, and it will save a lot of time later when I go back to add highlights with white paint. Next I painted the coat, pants, and gloves with Agrax Earthshade. I want the smooth areas of the coat to be very light in value, like a warm white. So I made that layer of paint thin and even. I tried to avoid allowing any of the paint to pool other than in the deep grooves along the edge. I want the fur to be darker, so I let more paint accumulate on those areas. Once the first layer dried, I painted a second layer on the gloves. Next I shaded all the armor, the fur, and the gloves with Nuln oil. I want the coat and pants to be very light, so I didn't shade those areas. After the first layer dried, I painted a second layer of Nuln oil on the base of the fur collar. Next I painted the weapons with black Templar, as well as the hoses on the back of the boots. I used a very sharp brush to add a narrow black line around any areas where I thought the model could use extra definition. You could add as much or as little as you want. I decided to add just a few lines on the helmet and some of the larger armor panels. Next I lightly dry brushed the weapons with Iron Warriors. Then I shaded the weapons with Nuln oil. At this stage you could base the models and call them finished, but I'd like to take them a step further and add a couple highlights. Let's highlight the armor first in two stages, beginning with a soft glaze style highlight. I diluted white paint with plenty of water, and with barely any paint on the brush, I applied thin layers of paint on the smooth portions of the armor and anywhere the previous layers dried unevenly. Notice how quickly the paint dries and how barely any paint comes off the brush. Build up layers one on top of the other, working progressively towards the areas you want to be lighter. The goal here is to create a smooth blend between gray in the recesses and near pure white on the raised, upward-facing edges. With the glazing portion done, I used a sharp brush and less diluted white paint to add edge highlights to the armor. You could highlight every single edge if you like, or just a few. I decided to focus my highlights on the helmet and a few of the most prominent upward-facing edges. Limiting the number of highlights will save a lot of time, especially if you're painting large numbers of models. Next, I highlighted the smooth areas of the coat with a few glaze layers of Bonewhite. Dilute the paint with plenty of water and make sure to have very little paint on the brush. The paint should stay exactly where you put it, and it shouldn't run off the brush or pool on the model. I built up a few layers of paint on the coat and focused on making the fabric as smooth as possible. Now is a great time for me to ask you to do those YouTube things that we all love so much. If you're liking the video so far, please give it a like. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on any future content. If you really like what I'm doing here and want to support the channel further, please consider Patreon or a YouTube channel membership. We have some perks including a Discord server, printer-friendly PDF files of our new recipe cards, and early access to videos. I highlighted the coat next with a sharp edge highlight of Offwhite. You could blend this layer with some glazes if you want to. I like the crisp, stylized look of edge highlights, so I'll avoid blending this layer. I painted a few details on the torso with bright red and bright blue, leaving a narrow black outline. I used an old brush to apply a generous layer of wood glue to the top of the base, and then I sprinkled on some coarse gravel and fine sand. After the glue dried, I painted the base with thinned Rhinox hide, followed by a heavy dry brush of XV88 brown, and then a light dry brush of Bonewhite. I painted the rocks with Dawnstone, and then shaded with Agrax Earthshade. I decided to add some snow to the bases, and first I mixed a paste from about equal parts white glue and snow flock. I used a sculpting tool to apply a few patches to the base, and then dipped it in the tub of dry flock to make the patches look fresh. Finally, I painted the edge of the base with black. I'd like to give a big shout out to our supporters here on YouTube and Patreon. Thank you so much for your support. It really is a huge help. If you want to be like these amazing people and help support what I'm doing here, just click the join button down below or follow the Patreon link in the video description. Thank you. This was a fun side project to work on, and now it's making me want to build and paint a snowy Hoth battle scene. Would you like to see more Star Wars Legion models on the channel? Should I make a Hoth diorama? Or maybe a different battle? Drop a comment below and start the conversation. Well, that's it for now. Thanks for watching, and until next time, Happy painting!